Daf Pei Aleph Kiddushin 81, and we're going to start on 80b around 6 lines from the bottom at the two dots. I want to say that today, not only are we praying for Yeshua Tzala for all of Am Yisrael, it's the 50th yahrzeit of all those murdered in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, 18th of Cheshvan. We pray that their neshamos should have an aliyah. The world does not forget about what happened. So, Pei on the base, around 6 lines from the bottom, the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, that which we learned in our Mishnah, that the laws of Yichud don't apply when it's two men and one woman. Rav explains, Oshanu el b'ksherim. That was only taught by kosher men, good men, but if they're bad men, afilu be'asar nami. Well, even if it would be 10 men, it wouldn't be good. And having Maisa, there was once an incident, Motiu asar b'mita. 10 men took out a woman in a coffin in order to sin with her. Amar Rav Yosef Teda, I'll prove it to you. That sometimes 10 men get together, Viganvi Kashura, they steal a beam. Well, and they're not embarrassed to do it. That's proof that men can get together if they're not going to do a sin. Name a Messiah. Let's bring a proof for Rav's position, because it says when the woman who was a sota would travel to Jerusalem to drink the bitter waters, they had to be careful that her husband didn't sleep with her on the way, because if her husband slept with her, the bitter waters wouldn't work. So we learn in sota that it says most from Moshe Talmidei Chachamim that we send 2 Torah scholars with him, to prevent him from sleeping with her on the way. And that proves Talmidei Chachamim only Torah scholars, not regular people. This proves that the laws of Yichud only don't apply if it's the 2 men are Torah scholars, like Rav taught. The Gemara says, no, that's not the reason. Shani Talmidei Chachamim diyadei lasriyeh. Torah scholars are different. They had to specifically send Torah scholars the other lasriyeh because they knew how to give Hasra. They knew how to warn him not to sleep with her. We're on the top of 81a. Hobbs, as you focus on the Gemara today, please have in mind that this is the yahrzeit of 5 years ago. The men and women were killed in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Remember that? So this is their yahrzeit. So we're studying today in their memory. The top line of 81a. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, when do we say this? We say this only in a city. That's where we say that 2 men and 1 woman is not yichud, and it's allowed. Aval b'derech, but if they're far away from the city, adshu shlosha, then we need 3 men. Shemi it's derech echad me'em lahashi, because what if one of them has to go to the bathroom? Then you're going to have one person secluded with her. So therefore, if you're traveling, you need at least 3 men. Gemara says, well, let's bring a proof for this statement of Rav. Name a Messiah. The Gemara in Sota says you give him 2 Torah scholars to go with him. So he doesn't sin with her, which means Trei v'il, 2 men and him. That makes hatlasa. That means we need a minimum of 3. The Gemara says no. The reason why we send 3 there is hasam ki echad dinahavale sahadi. No, because we need to send 2 Torah scholars because they need to be able to testify. If he did sin with her, they'd be able to testify. Rav Yehuda v'ka'azli ba'orcha. So now we have Gemara's going to have a lot of stories today. Rav Yehuda, we're going on the road. A woman walked in front of them. Amalei Rav Yehuda dal kareach mikmeganim. So Rav says to Rav Yehuda, pick up your foot in front of Gehenna, meaning to say walk quickly so you're not in back of her, because otherwise you'll sin with her. So Rav Yehuda said, but you yourself said that if it's 2 men and they're good people, you don't have to worry. And me and you, we're good. So Rav said back to Rav Yehuda, me aimer the b'ksherim could go on. You think I make good people like us? No way. Could go on about? No. Ella could go on my. So he says, so like whom? He says, could go to Chanina bar Papa v'chaver. Those were good people. Chanina bar Papa and his friends. But me, I'm not good enough, and you're not good enough. Amarav Malkin al Yichud ve'ein Ozrin al Yichud. Rav says that if a man and woman are secluded together, we'll give them lashes, but we're not going to say that if she was a married woman, but we're not going to say she's prohibited to be with her husband on the basis of this seclusion. If she would have had adultery, we would say she can't return to her husband. But if it's just seclusion, we're not going to prohibit her. When do we say that we give lashes if there's seclusion? Only if she was single girl. But if she was married, if she was married, low, then we're going to say we don't give lashes. Why? Because then if we start giving her lashes, people start accusing her children of being adulterous, of being mamzer, and they'll say, oh, why did she get lashes? Because she was adulterous. These aren't her children. So therefore, if she was married and she had seclusion, we don't give lashes. Marzutra Malki Umachris. Marzutra said, I have a good answer. I'll give the lashes and I'll say it's for yichud, but not for adultery. I'm like Rav Nachman Miparati or Rav Ashi. So he says you should be like Marzutra, do the same thing, give lashes and make the proclamation. I'm right, no. He says, no, I'm not going to do that because some people will hear about the lashes, but they won't hear about the announcement. So therefore, I'm not going to do that. So then, Amar Rav Malkin Alo Tova Shmua. Rav says if you have a strong rumor against somebody, but it's just a rumor, we'll give lashes as a result of this. This is called Lo Tova Shmua. The rumor is not good. And the precedent is that for that phrase is taken from the Bible, where Eli told to his children, Eli the Kohen Gadol, before Shmuel said to his children, Albani, Kilo Tova Shmuel. He said, I hear bad things about you. I hear you're taking the karbanos when you're not supposed to. So that's called Lo Tova Shmuel. We give lashes as a result of that. And Marzutra Mosivwa Apsire Al Kasri. Marzutra would put the bit of an animal on his shoulders, Umakrile, and he would proclaim as he gave this person lashes on the rumor, Albany, no, my son. Amarabha, now we have leniency. Bala Bahir, if her husband is in this town, if her husband is in the town, then we don't have to be worried about yichud and she's allowed to be secluded. Rashi says because he's concerned that her husband could come home at any moment. Rambam gives a different reason. He says if her husband's in the town, then the fear of the husband is upon her. The fear of the husband is upon her, and she's going to respect her husband and not sin. Amar Rav Yosef, Pesach Pasuch or Shesarabim Ein Choshen Mishum Yichud. If the house has an opening to the public domain, then we don't have to be concerned about Yichud. The commentaries discuss, what does it mean an opening? Does it mean it's unlocked? Does it mean the door is open? So that's a question. Rav Bibi Iklo L'Bei Rav Yosef, Rav Bibi came to the house of Rav Yosef to visit. Basar the Karachrifta, they ate a meal together. Amar Lahu, he said to them, Shikuli Darga Mitute Bibi. So Rav Yosef told the people in his house, okay, Rav Bibi's up on the second floor in the attic, take away the ladder so he can't come down to be with my wife. Mar says, but why? Why are we concerned about Yichud here? Her husband's in the town. Says, yeah, but Shani Rav Bibi Deshushvinte Havai. The guy says, no, because Rav Bibi is my close friend. He knows my wife. So because he knows my wife, we have to be more concerned about Yichud, not less concerned. If the men are on the outside and the women are on the inside, then we don't have to be concerned about Yichud because the men aren't going inside. But if the men are on the inside and the women are on the outside, so the men have to go through the outer room to get out, then because then when they go through, they're going to see the woman, so they could be secluded with her. And the Bryce, we're going to the opposite. And Amar Abaya Hashid, Amar Kahana, he says, Abai says, well, since we hear it both ways, we have to be strict, both ways. So Abaye, diary gulpe. Abaye, Rashi says, when the women and the men would both come to hear the drasha and the shul, Yantif, they would come to hear a drasha, there'd be a lot of concern for sin. So Abaye would separate them by putting up cans of pottery cans to make noise if they tried to cross over. Didn't have mechitza, obviously, so they had these cans. Rabba Dayarkana, Rabba will put up reeds to keep the men and women apart. Amar Abin, Sakva Deshata Rigla. Abin said that the worst part of the year for Yichud, the most of the sins happen on the festival. I know several people who met in shul on Yom Kippur and got married. So this is a time where men and women are hanging out together. One time there were these captive women. They came to Nardai. Askinu Rav Amram Chasida. So they came to the house of Rav Amram Chasida, and because he was the pious man, so he was involved in Pidyon Shvuyim. Ashku Darga Mikamayu. So then he took away the ladder from underneath them, so nobody could have yichud with them. When he was passing by, when a ladder, when one of them was walking by, a light fell on her face. Shakle Rav Amram with Darga. Rav Amram took the ladder quickly. And that normally 10 people couldn't pick up this ladder, but Dayo Chude, he himself now picked it up. He was so inspired by what he saw. Salak va'azo, he started going up the ladder. Kimato Palga Darga, when he came up half the way, Ifshach, he stopped. Rama Kola, he shouted out, Nurabe Amram. Amram is Amram's house is on fire. Asur Rabbanan, the rabbis came and they said to him, Amrulay Kisiftinan. He said, you've embarrassed us. You made it look like Amram is a sinner. Amrul Mutav Tikasfu Be Amram, it's better off that I be embarrassed in this world than not embarrassed in the world to come. He took an oath and he got rid of this Yetzirah from within him. So then came out from him like a pillar of fire. The pillar of fire came out from him. And then what happened was, he says, look, you're fire and I'm flesh, but I'm still better than you. Now I was reading this story, and you see the lengths that Rav Amram Chasida went to protect these captured women. He even embarrassed himself. And you can't help thinking of all the women who were captured by Hamas, who they treated in such a disgusting, inhuman manner, subhuman manner. See the difference between our tradition and what Hamas was doing. Rabbi Meir was making fun of people with sin. Yom Achada, one day, Idmele Satan Ki'isisa, Bachisa Denara. One day the Satan appeared to him like a woman on the other side of the river. So, Lo Ave Navra. So there was no ferry to take him across. Naka Mitra V'Kavar. So he took like a rope and he was crossing with a rope. The Ka'avar. Kimata Palga Mitra, when he came to half the way across, Shavke, all of a sudden the Satan left him. Amar, the Satan said to him, but not for the fact that they're screaming in heaven. He's Aru Rabbi Meir v'Torah, so be careful. Don't start up with Rabbi Meir and his Torah. I would have made you worthless. I would have made you worth only 2 meya, meaning I would have reduced you to nothing. Rabbi Akiva was also making fun of people who were sinning. One day, the Satan appeared to him like a woman on the top of a palm tree. So he took a hold of the palm tree because and he ran up it. When he came halfway up the palm tree, the Satan left him. He said he loved him at crazy Berakia, where from after that they're screaming at you in heaven. He's Rabbi Kiva the Torah, so Shivisi with the Meach Tartimaya would have made you worthless. Another story. Plimo, have a regular member call Yoma. Plimu used to say every day, Gire be'ena this Satan. Every day he would say, it's an arrow in the eyes of Satan. We had this earlier in the Gemara back on Daf Lamed where there was, I forget, maybe it was Rav Ashi, I forget who didn't get married until he was 20, but if he would have got married at 18, it would have been an arrow in the eyes of Satan. So he said, an arrow in the eyes of Satan. Pulimo used to say every day. Yom Achad, Mala Yoma de Kippur. One day it was Erev Yom Kippur. Idmile Ka'anya, the Satan appeared to him like a poor man. Also Kara Baba, the Satan was knocking on the door. He said, Afikule Rifta, they brought him out some bread. Amar Satan said, Yomakia inna kuliyama gavai vana avrai. Says everybody's inside. Why should it be outside? See, Satan wiggles his way in little by little into our house. So, and it makes you think you're doing a mitzvah. So, they brought him in the Krivule Rifta. They brought him some bread. I said to them, Amar Yomakia inna kuliyama ataka vana lechude. Everybody else sitting at the table. I'm by myself in the corner. They put him at the table. Yosef, he was sitting there. He made himself filled with boils and other wounds. And he was doing disgusting things. So they said to him, Tiv Shapir, sit properly, meaning to say, why are you doing these disgusting things? He said, Havuli Kasa. He said, bring me a cup. Yavoi Kasa. They brought him a cup. Ichmar. So what happened was he bent over and he like threw up into the cup. Nachrube Shaka, they rebuked him, Shakomis, and then at that moment the Satan took himself and died. Rashi says Shaka means like he took. So but anyway, now Shamu Davaka Amri Primu Katal Gavra, but Primu then heard that the rumor went out. The canard went out. Satan was doing this to him. But then they said, you killed him. Primo was worried. We know this in Jewish history. When you see this right in front of us, they killed themselves and they say, we killed them. So they were saying, Primo Katal Gavra, Primo Katal Gavra. He ran and he hid in the toilet. Also, Basra, they came running. The Satan came after him. Nafakames, Satan again made himself look like he was dead. But then the Satan saw that Primo was very upset. She revealed who he was. So Primo says to him, why are you saying all these things? Excuse me. Satan says to Primo, why do you say every day an arrow in the eyes of Satan? You shouldn't say that. So he said, what should I say? So he says, Lema Mar, you should say, Rachmana Nigar Bebe Satan. Let God do his job. Don't say, I'm going to shoot an arrow in the eyes of Satan. You say, let God shoot the arrows in the eyes of Satan. Meaning to say, don't think that you could destroy Satan. You need God's help to destroy Satan. Rav Chia bar Ashi have a ragil. So now we have another story. Rav Chia bar Ashi, he had practice that every day. Every time he did Tachanun, which we're going to do this morning, Amar Harachama Yatzilenu Miyetzar Hara. He said, God should save us from the Yetzar Hara. Yom Achada Shematinu Debeisel. One day his wife heard this, and Amar Michti Ha Kama Shani De Parashlemina. She said, this guy has a Yetzar Hara to be with a woman. For many years we haven't been together. My time Akamarachi. Why is he saying, God save me from the Yetzar Hara? Yom Achada Vakagaris Binte. So one day, Rav Chia bar Ashi was studying Torah in the garden. Then Koshta Navsha, she made herself look beautiful. Cholfa Vitanya Kameh. She made herself look beautiful. She dressed herself up in a disguise. She walked in front of him. Amar La, he said to her, Manat. So Rav Chia bar Ashi didn't recognize this. He says, who are you? Amra Ana Cherusa, Dahadri Miyoma. She said, I'm Cherusa. Cherusa was a very well-known prostitute, Rashi says, was very recognizable. And she says, I returned today. Tava. So he desired to be with her. So Amrale, she said to him, I see Nihili La'ach Romana Deresh Tutzisa. So she said to him, you want to be with me? Get me this pomegranate or a fruit that's on the top of this tree. Shavar. So he jumped up, Rav Chia bar Ashi, also Isinile, and he brought it to her. Kiaso Veta, when he came home, Havaka Shagra Dveisao Tanura, his wife was preparing the oven. Solik Vikayasav Vigave. So he sat inside the oven to die. So she said, why are you killing yourself? Amrullah, my eye, what's going on? Amrullah said to her, so he confessed. He was with a prostitute. Amrullah, his wife said to him, Anahame, what are you talking about? That was me. Lo Ashkach, but I didn't believe her. Money. She gave him signs. She proved it. Amrway, Anamio Isuri He says, still, I intended to sin. The rest of his life, this tzaddik, Rav Chia Barashi, was fasting till he died as a result of so much fasting. And how do we know that if you intend to sin, even though you didn't sin, you need to do tshuva? The Tanya, because we learned in the Brisa, says about a neder, a vow, Isha hafeiram v'Hashem yislachah. If a woman makes a vow, her husband annuls the vow, and God will forgive her. So why does God have to forgive her? Wants the Gemara to know. So we had this in Nazir. Remember Nazir Chav Gimel? It's the top of the page. Chav Gimel Amid Aleph. Remember we had this discussion. What's the pasuk referring to? Be'isha shenadra b'Nazir. A woman makes a vow to be a Nazir. V'shama ba'ala. Her husband hears this. Rejects the vow. She doesn't realize that her husband rejected the vow. Right? So shows the yayin matam. So she's drinking the wine and coming in contact with the dead bodies. She thinks she's sinning, but she doesn't realize that her husband rejected the vow, so she's not sinning. That woman needs atonement. She needs forgiveness because she thought she was sinning. Rabbi Akiva came to this pasuk. He used to cry, and he said, Amar Umamishan is Gavin Lechol Basar, Chazir, just like somebody who intends to eat pork and eats kosher food, Amra Torah, Tzricha Kapara. The Torah says you need to do a kapara, Tzlicha. You need forgiveness. Mishan is Gavin Lechol Basar, Chazir, Ba'ala B'yada Basar, Chazir. Somebody who intends to eat pork and does eat pork, Achas Kama V'Kama, for sure this person needs to do atonement and forgiveness. Kayotze B'davar Simoy Atomer. We have another pasuk. If a person ate meat and he doesn't know if he sinned or not, no. If he ate the meat, he doesn't know if he sinned. He has a sin. Rabbi Kiva would come to this pasuk. Rabbi Kiva was crying. Somebody who intends to eat kosher and he eats non-kosher. Torah. Another Torah says he's guilty. He needs to do atonement. Somebody who intends to eat the chaylev and he does eat the non-kosher in the end. How much more so somebody who intends to eat non-kosher and does eat non-kosher. Isi ben Yehuda says, no. For this, everybody cries. Everybody has to cry about this because there's a sin, even if you don't intend to do something wrong, you are considered to have sinned. So then it says a man can have seclusion with his mother. Amar Yehuda, Amar Vasim, a person can have seclusion with his sister, but he could just have temporary seclusion. He can't he's allowed to sleep in the same house with her one night, but he can't be her roommate. Like they can't rent an apartment together, just the two of them. But he can live in the same apartment with his mother and his daughter. Ki Amra Kamei de Shmuel. When she said this in front of Shmuel, when this was said in front of Shmuel, Shmuel said you can't be secluded with anybody, even with an animal. You can't be secluded with your mother, your daughter, even an animal. So now we learned in the Mishnah. Shmuel seems to be arguing with the Mishnah. It says in the Mishnah, you can't be secluded with the mother and your daughter and sleep with them, even flesh on flesh. This is a refutation of Shmuel. Shmuel says, according to your logical, now what you learned in the Brisa, it says your sister and your mother-in-law and all the other arayos, you're not allowed to have seclusion with them. There must be Ella. When does it say in our Mishnah you can be secluded? Only with witnesses, be'edim. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? With witnesses? What does that mean with witnesses? Ela be'edim means to say when there are witnesses there. Gemara says be'edim in, only when there are witnesses there you can be secluded with your sister, etc. Be'edim in, shlo be'edim. Well, that doesn't make sense. Without witnesses, you can't have secluded with them. Ela Tanai. We have to say it's a dispute amongst the Tanaim whether or not you can be secluded with people you're related to. Must say it's a dispute amongst the Tanaim. Tanai. As we stated, the Tanya Amar Meir Hizaro B Bimnei Biti. He said You should even pay attention, not to be careful, to be with me when I'm with my daughter. I don't even want to be secluded with my daughter. And Amar Rabbi Tarfon Azar Bimei Kalasi says, I make sure that I'm not secluded with my daughter-in-law. Liglegalav Oso Talmud. That student there was a student there that started mocking him, making fun of him. Oh, you don't want to be secluded with your daughter or your daughter-in-law? Amar Rabbi Aval Mishum Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel Lo Yamim Muatim Ad Shenichshal Oso Talmud B'Chamasu. Wasn't long before that student did a sin with his mother-in-law. And then it says, Shmuel said, you can't even be secluded with an animal. I feel in behema, even with an animal. This, by the way, if you're passing like Shmuel, will be a big problem. A lot of people have pets. Can't be secluded with your pet. So Abaye, Mecholai, Mikula, Debara. Abaye would clear out the whole field when he walked. He didn't want to be secluded with an animal. Rav Sheshes Maverle Mitzvah. Rav Sheshes would set up like a mechitza, like a partition, so he wouldn't go near an animal to be secluded. Rav Kahana in Narda, he was going to see Rav Kahana at the river. Chazia the Yosef Kagaris, he saw Rav Kahana was sitting and studying Torah. The Kaima Behema come in, there was an animal in front of him. Amarle Lo Savar Amara Fil Behema. Didn't you hear what Shmuel said? You can't even be secluded with an animal? Amarle Lava Daita, he said, oh, I didn't pay any attention. I was studying Torah. Lava Daita, I didn't realize what was going on. He says a person can be secluded with two women who both fault him for Yibam, and also with two co-wives, or Isha Vechamosa, with a woman and her mother-in-law, Isha Bas Baal, with a woman and her husband's daughter, Isha Vetinokes, with a woman and her and a little girl, Sheyodas Tambia, who understands what Bia is about, the Amos Sarasat's Mama Bia, but she doesn't give herself over to Bia. In all these cases, we're going to say that they can be secluded with these two women, even though in general you can't be secluded with these two women, because these two women have adversarial relationships. And so therefore, hold on, they'll be more likely to say something if they see something. And therefore you're allowed to be secluded with them. Okay. Then it says, okay, we have to go quickly here. Once they get older, one could sleep in his clothes. This one could sleep in his, they have to sleep in their clothing. The comma, what's the age where they can no longer sleep in an open robe, but they have to wear clothing? A girl 9 years old in one day. A boy 12 years old. And some say some say a girl 12 years old, and Tinok ben Shloshes, and a boy of 13 years old. And in both cases, it's where they start going through puberty. So when they start going through puberty, then you can't sleep with them in an open robe. When do we say that you're allowed to sleep in the same bed? Only when she's not embarrassed, when she's not embarrassed to stand in front of you naked. The moment that your daughter is embarrassed to stand in front of you naked, then the father can't sleep with her in an open robe. My time, and what's the reason? Because at that point, the desire has come into her. And so therefore, she already understands things. And so therefore, you can't sleep in the same bed. Rav Acha bar Abba came to Rav Chisda's, his son-in-law's house. He took his granddaughter and he held her very tight. So his son-in-law, Rav Chisda, says to Rav Acha bar Abba, don't you know she's engaged? What? So he was rebuking his father. You're embracing an engaged woman. So Rav Acha bar Abba says to him, well, now if you're the one who did something wrong, the Torah Ploniani wrote, so you're not going to betroth the minor until she gets older and she says, I want to be with this guy. So he said, so his son-in-law, Rav Chisda, said back to him, Marnami Avrei Shmuel, you also violated what Shmuel said. Because Shmuel said, Shmuel said you're not allowed to use a woman, and here you're using her, you're like coming close to her. You're not supposed to do that. He says, I hold like the other position of Shmuel. What was the other position of Shmuel? The Amar Shmuel, everything, if you do it for the right reason, is okay. And I'm not trying to the reason why I'm embracing her is not, God forbid, for a sin, but because Rashi says to show her mother how much I love her daughter, and I'm her grandfather, so I'm allowed to do this. Okay. Anyway, that's today's daf. You owe me a beautiful daf as we study in the memory of those murdered in the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh 5 years ago on their yard site. Shem Neshama should have an aliyah, and God willing, we'll